Is what you see in the media the actual truth? Very topical topic for us to get into. Welcome to another edition of The Good, Bad, and Ugly of Business. I'm your host, Catryn Becker, and in this podcast, we bring in all sorts of amazing people because we want to learn what they have learned in their career to make them successful. Because behind every successful person, there are learnings and failures and wrong turns and yields. All of it comes together to make them successful. Because while a smart person can learn from their own mistakes, a genius can learn from the mistakes of others. And we know all you listeners are geniuses and you want to listen about this next guest. So please make sure to turn up your volume. He is an entrepreneur that has done it all, has seen it all, has stories out the wazoo. He is a celebrated podcast host himself, so he definitely has the gift of gab. Thomas Brainsky, welcome to the show.
Oh my gosh, that was a fantastic introduction. I might want you to do that again because it was so good.
Thank you. I just need a little bit of information. You just wind me up and whoop, it just comes right
Ah,
out.
really well played. So, for the audience, if my voice does not sound like it normally would if you listen to my podcast, which is Brainsky Unleashed, that is 5 stars. Don't forget to hit subscribe on that one. Very important. I am currently suffering from the coronavirus. It is my 8th time. Very excited about this, but there was no way on earth I was going to miss this opportunity to speak to you today.
Well, and I am so honored that you would come on, even having not being feel the best. But you've had the opportunity to do some really amazing things in your life, and you deal a lot with planes and jets, which is part of why you think you might got the coronavirus this time around. So please give us a little bit of taste of what that is, and then we'll start getting into the juicy questions.
All right. So, long time ago,
In a
I
land
began
far away?
in a land far away. I began my career as someone who had no clue. And I had to find my way in life. And I did not have the benefit of wealthy parents. I had a horrible education. I graduated literally, I want to say it was like 13th or 14th from the bottom of my class in high school. And so I was not a great student. Um, but what I did do is I was always a hard worker. I always had this work
Mm.
ethic in me. I always did a good job at whatever it was. And at one point, my father said to me as I was losing a place to live because I wasn't going to be able to stay at home, long story on that, parents divorcing, big mess. Why don't you try and be a flight attendant? Because, you like to travel. I always like to travel. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. I couldn't even do that. No one would hire me. So I literally went ticket counter to ticket counter at an airport, filling out applications, which, by the way, is typically not the right way to get an airline job. If you're ever interested, don't do that. But there was one guy that pointed me in the right direction. I got a job. I busted my butt. I impressed people. Long story short, I kind of grew and finally actually developed a career in the ground operations field. So I actually now started a company back in 2006, or I guess I started doing it for myself in '06 and incorporated in 2007, where we provide an amazingly unique service for airlines that do charter flights. So we're not talking about private jets like Gulfstreams. Albeit we still do work with those a little bit, but not as much on that side. But these are like Boeing 777s or 737s or 767s, big planes that carry big groups to different places. And I'm basically an orchestra conductor for these airplanes. And so every time one of these things lands, there is a dance. There is equipment, there's things that must go on, services and equipment go on, and service equipment go off. And managing that is something that I can do, and I have a team of people that do across the globe for the airlines that do these charter flights. Because what happens is, if you're United Airlines, as an example, you're going to between Dallas, Texas, and Chicago, you don't need someone like me because you're doing scheduled service. It happens every day. But
Yeah.
if you're going to put an airplane into, say, Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, they don't have people just standing there waiting for that airplane. And so everything will be all set. The services will be arranged, but it's my job to go into that location and manage the dance. And it's a fascinating thing. And it's a lot of fun because I do get to travel the world. I've been on every continent except for Antarctica. It's fantastic.
So do you bring the people there to do the orchestra, or do you work with the people that are local?
We work with the local people. So what happens is the client being an airline, will they will contact me usually towards the end of the flight setup. And they will say, okay, we're going to operate between point A and point B. And we would like you to either go out in advance of the operation and manage it on the ground and stay on the ground and get the airplane in, get it out. Or we want you to ride the airplane from point A to point B and continue riding the airplane at every single stop until such time as the whole program is over. And so it all depends on what the need is of the client. I have different clients that have different requirements and different ways in which they do things. There are times where I've spent 50 hours on an airplane or more, where I would start in the United States, I'd go to the Middle East, I'd come back to the United States. It's disgusting, but this is what hot towels are for. And then go all the way over to the Pacific before I finally, hit a shower and a bed. And so it all depends on what the need is for the client. And I mean, I've done this for everything for flying Department of Defense flights to foreign military flights to famous musicians, like tour charters to incentive charters, presidential campaign charters. Um, broken cruise ship charters, you
Oh,
name the
wow,
ticket.
that's a thing.
I've done it, and it's everything provides an adventure and some sort of lessons and challenges that the nice thing about something like this is it's never ever the same day twice.
I think that sounds really fascinating. And in another life, that would have been something I would have loved to do because I also love to travel. My father was the duty station manager for Lufthansa here in Houston. So we traveled a lot as kids, and having that experience and kind of seeing behind the scenes, it's really something.
So everything that your father did as a station manager, by the way, I was a station manager as well for the 10th largest major U.S. carrier at one point, and certainly not the size of Lufthansa. But what your father was in charge of is essentially the same thing that I'm doing. It's just I do it all over the world in one hit here, one hit there,
Yeah,
versus consistently at one location all the time.
being a mobile version of it.
Very much so.
So you must have so many stories, but given the current political climate that we're in right now in America, it's a very topical thing to discuss. And as I mentioned at the start, what we see in the media isn't always what people see with their own eyes. So you have had the experience of working with local campaigns for a number of the US political system. And you've seen different things in there. Can you please kind of explain what it's like to just be around these people as part of their normal days and not when they're, quote unquote, on?
So it's an interesting topic because the media basically portrays these politicians to be things that they are not. Every one of them is different in person in some way than what you see on television or in the news. The first one I'll talk about is Mitt Romney. Now, I'm not a huge Mitt Romney fan from a policy standpoint, but I can tell you that that poor guy was just destroyed by the media. And Mitt Romney, all this man is, believe it or not, on a daily basis, is Ned Flanders. He is like the nicest, sweetest, most caring human being on earth. And he just got blasted as being like some sort of like evil Nazi racist. And I'm like, there couldn't be anything farther from the truth than this guy. I mean, there was at one point, I was flying around on his campaign plane, and there was someone on the press who will remain nameless, but it was her birthday. And Mitt Romney and his wife personally arranged with the campaign to have a birthday cake brought out to the airplane as a surprise.
Wow.
And so there I was standing near Mitt and his wife as they were putting candles in the cake so he could light the candles, and he carried the birthday cake to the back of the airplane where the press section was so he could personally sing happy birthday to this reporter.
Wow.
That's who he was. Yeah, she
Wow.
roasted the media.
Well, and that just another piece of that. I mean, we don't necessarily think the average person of, how these politicians get from point A to point B. And so what you would see is that there's press on the plane with them.
Yes.
So
I mean,
they
that's
have,
part of it. On campaigns, they typically will carry press with them because it benefits the campaign and it benefits the press. The campaign wants to have the press coverage. They need the press coverage, and the
sure.
press needs to be there to get it. And so it's a mutual thing. Um, I'll say what nobody wants to say, but it's reality. And that is that, when you have the press on a Republican campaign, it is a little bit more adversarial.
Mm,
Everyone will get along for the most part, but it's usually a lot harder on the candidate. Having been on political aircraft that have Democrats who are sitting in the front, the press is more fawning, and it's a little bit more jovial and more relaxed because there is a leftist bent with mainstream media, and it is a real thing. I don't give a crap what anyone else wants to say about it. I mean, when you get to see it behind the scenes, it is real and
mm.
it's sad, but at the same time, it's the nature of the beast. And for at least for me in my position, I just will sit there and shut up and watch the show and then just take it all in.
Bring out the popcorn.
Basically, absolutely. And it's a fun ride no matter what. I mean, there are things that do take place, which, you have moments that you see where a candidate will come back and talk with the press. Some of it being off the record and some of it being on the record. And usually those off the record conversations are they're human. There are such human sides of these people, and nobody unfortunately ever gets to see the real true human sides.
Mm. And that would probably be the best. I mean, we're in such a time and place in social media, in particular, about talking about authenticity and wanting to see people at their true self and, getting to this place. And yet, not in any of the media, whether it's social, political, otherwise, there's very little actual authenticity that's taking place. And I always find that as such a hypocritical juxtaposition that we're faced with.
Show me an honest politician, I will show you a unicorn. It's a sad reality, and both sides are really guilty of it. Both sides have a tendency of overinflating truths, bending truths, breaking truths, lying straight out. There's always something that could be identified as bullcrap. But there is also a lot of truth out there if it's able to be cut through. In my opinion, I think that the media does a god-awful job of reporting the truth.
Hmm.
And that is because of biases. And there are biases on the left, there are biases on the right. I think there's far more mainstream networks that do more bias on the left than the right, but you still have the biases on the right for sure that
Sure.
may choose to ignore certain facts or details that doesn't make their guy look good.
Yeah. I mean, a perfect example of that is my family, my mom and my kids, we just went to Portland, Oregon, and we live here in Texas, a very Republican conservative state, and it's freaking hot here in the summer. So we every summer try to find some place with cooler temperatures to go visit and, get the kids to see different parts of the country, of the world. And so we picked Portland this time around. And I cannot tell you how many people, close family members, coming up and going, why are you taking the kids to Portland? Like, that's dangerous. You're going to get mugged and it's tent city and it's just horrible and all of these awful things. And it was like, well, there's lots of things to do outside the city. Like Mount Hood's there, the coast is there, like we'll be fine. And I have to say, we had a lovely time. Portland is a beautiful, beautiful city, and it was really great to see it with my own eyes and form my own opinions rather than just accepting what people had told me or said about something else. And I wish everyone had the opportunity to see more of this with their real eyes.
You know, that brings up something that's worth mentioning. Um, I really wish that anyone who was vehemently anti-Trump would take the time to actually suck it up long enough to go to a Trump rally and be surrounded by Trump supporters.
Hmm.
In the same way, I really wish that a ardent Trump supporter would take the time, can't say Biden anymore, but would take the time to possibly go to a Harris rally and be around the people
Yeah.
and make a decision at that point. Because what most people seem to forget is that these are still human beings and all of their followers are human beings. The media has done such an amazing bang up job at painting everyone who doesn't agree with them as the great Satan. it really does detract from the reality of what does exist. I have been to political rallies before. I have been around supporters of both sides before,
Mm.
and they're all good people. They
Yeah.
really are. They're good people. They're good meaning people. Um, the candidates themselves, they're not evil people. I mean, oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how many times I'd had people tell me, I think Barack Obama might be the Antichrist. Listen, Barack Obama, I didn't agree with his politics, but this man shook my hand all the time and thanked me for what I was doing.
Mm.
He's a good guy. He's a
Yeah.
good guy. It doesn't mean that you have to vote for him, but it doesn't mean that he's Satan. He's not the Antichrist. I've had people who tell me that Donald Trump is the Antichrist. Donald Trump is not the Antichrist. I know people in Donald Trump's organization. These are amazing, good, hardworking, wonderful people that will tell you how generous and kind Donald Trump is, how Donald Trump bends over backwards to help people and doesn't need attention to do it.
Yeah.
They're,
Especially when doing it when there's no cameras around.
these people do really amazing things without cameras around. The problem is the cameras and the people who speak behind the cameras. And they just take whatever they see and twist it to whatever they want it to be. And it's all bullcrap.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so the argument should always, always, always be about policy. Pay no attention to anything with fodder. Just focus on the policy. If you agree and you like the policy, go with that because the personality, whatever you're seeing, is not what you actually see. Period.
Yeah. End of story. It always irks me when anyone's compared to Hitler because I feel like it diminishes what Hitler did, which was so atrocious.
It's true.
By making so many comparisons to him, it's like, well, then was he really that bad if there's so many people like that?
Right. And that's a completely fair argument. And unfortunately, there's so many people that just jump to that conclusion because it's easy, but
Yeah.
it's uneducated and it's ignorant. But people
Mm.
go there because they think, well, this is just easy. And I've got my keyboard, I'm a warrior, and I'm gonna say what I want to say, and I'm a tough guy, and I believe what I believe, and it's all over social media, and it's all bull crap. All of it. These are human beings. They are not perfect. They put on their pants just like everybody else. They make mistakes just like the rest of us. And they have enough gusto to run for office and get torn to shreds by the media or propped up by the media and fight against the media because they know that they're going to get torn to shreds and they still have enough gusto to put up with the sheer hell that is their daily life because they have something inside of them that says they want to make a difference. So
Mm.
like I said, the key to any vote cannot be what you hear about the person. Whatever the media says and whatever you believe about the person is bullcrap. The key is in the policy. If you don't actually get the policy, if you don't hear policy statements, that is a red flag. If the argument is this person against me is evil, they want to destroy democracy, blah, 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 without any policy whatsoever, that's a red flag. That means that you aren't actually getting what they will do.
Yeah.
If you're going to base your vote on that, you are now an uneducated voter. I'm sorry. If
Yeah,
that's
I don't need
controversial, I
that.
don't care. That is reality. If your policy may align with, say, Trump, because you align with immigration or you align with the tax policy, and you happen to like that, but you think he's a bad guy, so therefore you won't vote for him, I'm sorry, you are now voting for the uneducated. That is a fact. You are now going to vote against the policy that you like. Kamala Harris has yet to make policy statements. To me, that is concerning. Now, this is going to date poorly. This podcast will date poorly
Yeah.
because eventually there will be a president and there will be a time and a place where this will make no sense. But for where we are right now, just so that way there is perspective, she has been given the presidential nod. She is now has the nomination for president of the United States. The left will tell you it's grassroots. That's amazing. Grass grows in 2 days, too. I never knew grass to grow that fast, but that is what the media tells you. Again, these are all spins. Now, Harris's previous positions have been very clearly outlined, and they are not something I agree with. But I don't hear those positions being talked about right now. All I hear about right now is how her opposition is evil. If this is the campaign that is going to be careful what you vote for, because you have to know what your policy positions are. Otherwise, you're an uneducated voter.
And something you said a few minutes ago, just about how hard the job of being president is, and that you're going to be torn at from all angles, your personal life ripped to shreds, decisions you made in your 20s when I think so there's two thoughts I have on this. The first one is, I remember growing up, kids talking about, I want to be president when I grow up someday. Now I feel like I hear my kids being like, I want to be a YouTuber.
Right.
I want to be an influencer. It feels like that power has shifted away because it's still about wanting to have some sort of power.
Right.
Right. So that element is still underlying it, but now we're not seeing that so much as being the president. They're no longer necessarily the leader of the free world when we're so divided in that form. So I think that's just such an interesting way to kind of look at where things are going. And I had a second thought, but it's lost. It's left the brain. There was two things, but now there's just one.
It happens. Most people are not familiar with the Federalist Papers. And in the Federalist Papers, it was basically like, if you read them, these are the founding fathers basically sharing with us the arguments for or against how they came up with the Constitution and the structure and everything that they put together. And one thing that was very clear in the Federalist Papers is that they were very much against using DC jobs, right? Using, be it the Senate or the House or even the presidency for these paid positions, because they recognize that you will never have men of honor, and no, not honor, men of virtue, if you give them power and money. See, power and money corrupt. You could have power or you could have money, but when you put them together, you have corruption. They were very afraid of that. And we got away from that. As a matter of fact, most people don't even recognize that at some point in time, the Senate changed to be representing the people. So, I mean, think about how we vote, right? So we vote for senators in our elections, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
That's never the way it used to be. And most people don't even know that.
Well, that's why, because we're not actually a democracy.
We were a representative.
Republic.
That's correct. We are a republic. But back in the day, when our Constitution was first born, and we operated like this, the Senate was populated not by the votes of the people, but it was by appointees of the state. So the people had their place in the House. They had their representation, but the states each had their appointees. And so, no, the people would not vote for their senators. But now all they've done is taken the upper house and combined that with the lower house and treat it basically as the same, only with different term limits. And I would argue that that was a big mistake, because who is really watching out for the state? No one. It's all just about the people and the will of the people, which that sounds great, but the people are people who belong in states. And I really do wish that we would go back to having the state, the good of the states being represented, because then you might actually have a little bit more power with things like immigration and the border.
Right.
Think about what happens with your state and what the influx is. I have to say, one of the smartest things I've ever seen was what Governor Abbott did, and DeSantis followed with, which is putting people on buses and literally transporting them to places where it wasn't a problem before. But now they're going, oh my gosh, in New York, hey, it's a Texas problem. We're a sanctuary. Oh yeah, are you a sanctuary right now? How's that working out for you? Because it's not something that's fair, and it's not something that you guys should bear the burden of. And had there been true state representation, there would have been more fighting on behalf of the benefit of the state as a whole, versus just simply the whims of the voters of the state, which totally does belong absolutely with the House of Representatives.
Do you think you'd ever go into politics seeing what you've seen?
No.
No one can pay you enough?
There's not enough. Hey, listen, I haven't even thought about it. There is not enough money on earth to make me go, geez, I really want to be part of this bureaucracy, right? Where you sacrifice privacy. You run for an election, and every demon in your past is going to come out. Every stupid thing you've ever posted is going to come out. I've
That's what
got.
I was going to talk about earlier. So thank you for bringing that back.
I'm glad I could do that for you. You're welcome.
Well, it's the idea of that, if you've said something, in your 20s, that now applies to you in your 40s, 50s, 60s, and doesn't allow any space for people to change and grow and to learn
None.
from their mistakes. And I find
None.
that is such a fallacy
Yep.
in our system, such a flaw.
Every bad date that you've ever been on, anytime, like, if you're a guy, I mean, listen, I was a total dirtbag in my 20s and probably early 30s. I mean, yeah, it is what it is. I'm not necessarily proud of it, but I can't deny that it happened. And I mean, I treated some women like complete ass when I was dating them. I would, date them, drop them, date them, drop them, and move on to the next. Man, just imagine that one in a political campaign, how my entire history would just be brought up and and the effect that that would have on my family, my children, and it's like I have no problem, with trying to tell my children as they get older, hey, you know what, guys, don't do what your dad did. That was not a cool move. That was a dirtbag move, and it took a while for me to mature. But to have that be sort of a public thing where it's blasted across every news network there is why the hell would anyone want that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't feel
you
like
got
it's
to be a
relevant.
real psychopath to run for these offices.
It takes a different level for sure. But
Yes.
as we're starting to kind of wind down our time together, I want to kind of go back to just your business part of it and just, we've talked about, I feel like we've covered the bad and the ugly quite well. Let's talk a little bit about the good. Let's talk about some of the maybe trips that you've been able to take or the places in the world that you've seen that you wouldn't have otherwise without this business.
Well, yeah, I mean, to do what I do puts me in places that are both amazing and some of the biggest armpits on the planet. But no matter what, each one of these experiences is a blessing. I cannot tell you how many times I look up to the heavens and I thank God for the fact that I get to do what I do every single day. Here I am, I could be in Singapore for a week. I love Singapore. I could be on the ground in Singapore and it's like, oh my gosh, thank you, God, because I'm being paid to be here all over Europe. I got to fly into Israel and rescue Jews to get them out of harm's way
Mm,
after October 7th. I mean, you want to talk about something that just hits you to your core and how important that is.
yeah.
And I've done rescue movements before, and those are always touching, but that one was really something.
Mm,
Helping people just get away from harm's way. I've done that, or bringing soldiers home from war. My God, to hear an airplane when you bring a packed airplane full of smelly, sweaty soldiers out of the Middle East, and you touch down in the United States, and you hear that eruption of cheering because they are so happy to be home and safe. I cry every time. It gets me
yeah.
every time. And so it's one of the most glorious jobs that I could ever ask for. And it's so niche, like it's not like everyone can do it, but yet
Right.
God has blessed me with this. And it is an honor to live and do it every single day. And I'm grateful for that every day. It's fantastic.
It's such a beautiful thing to think about, just, the circuitous path that life takes. Like it's not like being at number 13th from the bottom in your high school, being like, this is what I'm gonna do, not having that knowledge. Was there some sort of, support or faith or something that helped you just to keep moving and keep going forward as this kind of opened up for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Number one, you have to be comfortable with failure. You have to be. Anyone who has succeeded in life did it because they failed a lot.
Hmm.
I mean, that's just a fact. You know, when I decided to go out on my own, I was blessed because I have a great wife. And when I came to my wife and I said, I want to leave my job because I just got written up for something so stupid. And as part of the write-up, they basically said that I had to prioritize the company over any personal matters. And I thought that was really gross after putting my whole heart and soul into this company for 10 years. And I love the company to this day. They're bankrupt. I would work for them again in a heartbeat. I would take whatever effing pay cut I could to work for them again because they were such a great company. But this one particular individual really stuck it to me, and I didn't appreciate that. But I said to her, I think I could do this on my own. And she had enough belief in me and enough trust, enough faith to say, you know what? If we've got to flip burgers, we'll flip burgers. Go follow your dreams. Having that support staff under you makes a big difference. It really does. And believe me, it was not rainbows and lollipops. It has never been rainbows and lollipops. I may talk gloriously about what I do, but I have been sued multiple times by bankrupt airlines where their secured creditors want their money back to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Because that just happens to be a thing in this industry, and it's disgusting. And you can't just erase it and make it go away. And so there's a lot of pain and frustration. There's a lot of mistakes that you could make along the way in any business. But it's what you do with it and how quickly you get up and how quickly you recalibrate that makes a world of a difference. And you can't be afraid of that. You got to have a solid steel gut to be able to take the shots that you take and get back up. If you don't have that, I would encourage you to stay with your jobs. Not everyone is destined to run their own businesses.
Right.
If you are that afraid, then stay where you are. But if you do not have that fear, if you know that you can take a body shot or 10 of them and still get back up and try again and not quit, then maybe you are suited for something like this.
Truth bomb.
And I'm going to tell you something else.
Tell me something else.
I'm going to tell you something else because I want to bring it up. I was flying recently with a very young flight attendant, and I really, really enjoyed my time with her because she was a very inquisitive person. She asked a lot of questions, and she's a very curious person. And I don't usually come across a lot of curious people anymore. Usually people are just so focused on, their phones and looking down and not being curious about other people around them. And so I found her fun to talk to because she wanted to learn more. And it dawned on me. I thought, you know what? I'm going to teach this person how to be a millionaire. Because it's extremely easy to be a millionaire. And most people do not know it. And I guarantee you, you probably do this for your kids. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. If you don't, you will. But most people have no idea how to become a millionaire, and they certainly don't teach their kids how to do it. But it's very simple. And it involves compound interest. And it's very simple. You just simply take money and put it into an account that bears interest or does mutual funds or whatever that gets about 10% or more, which there's plenty of them out there, by the way.
Yeah.
And you just want to make sure that they're old and been around for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and have a long track record of producing more than 10% over that term. And you just keep investing in it. And you put, say, $1,500 or $2,500 away for a kid. And as long as you put X amount away per month, if it's $50 a month or $100 a month for a kid, and then you just teach them, this is not your college money, this is not your car money, this is not your house money, this is not your wedding money, this is your retirement. And you just have to keep putting that $100 away every single month until you turn 65. And all of a sudden, when you hit 65, you will probably be worth, I don't know, between 1.8 and $2.5 million.
But that takes discipline
And nobody.
Consistency. And we live in an instant gratification society, Tom.
But that is my gift. And if anyone actually wants to listen to this and take that very simple advice, you will turn your children into millionaires and change your entire family tree forever. Because there's one thing that the government cannot do very successfully, and that is to tell millionaires how to live. Good luck with that. So which would you rather be? Someone who lives under the control of the government, feeding off the government and thriving only in a way that the government will allow, or spit yourself out of that system and spit your family and your generations of families out of that system? That is your choice. And it's something you could do very, very simply, but it takes a shit ton of discipline over time. But that is your choice.
But it's a pretty great gift to give yourself and to give your generations.
It is.
To follow.
And so if your listeners ever want to learn anything more, I will also offer this. Myself and a few others who are very successful in business have decided that we want to get together and do something very unique, and that is helping business owners and even if it's people in sales or business managers develop and solve the problems that they are solving. It's called fixmybiznow.com, fixmybiznow.com. That is fixmybiznow.com. You could sign up and join a weekly program where we will literally help you with whatever challenges you're having and use a whole community of people to do it. So that way you can overcome and be successful. Because 9 times out of 10, most people have no idea how to solve the problems very quickly, and so they see them and they harp on them and they worry about them and they don't just simply put solutions to them, or maybe they don't know who to ask. And listen, for $99 a month, it's a bargain.
Yeah, you can't beat that level of mastermind and experience of challenges, because the truth is we're not alone. You don't have to do it alone. No one's going to give you a medal at the end. Congratulations, you did it on your own.
And when you have an entire community of high-powered people who help you solve whatever the problem is, you're going to get a much better outcome than you doing it yourself. Period.
Absolutely.
End of story.
End of story. Tom, this has been so much fun. I really enjoyed talking politics with you.
Well, thank you. I enjoy.
It's nice to be able to have a conversation with someone and just have a conversation and listen to the other person. And I think the world could do a lot from just listening to one another, instead of coming back with our own half-baked forms of opinions and ideas, and really just watch and listen.
We say that, but I think you're right, and you hit the nail on the head. Shut up and listen.
And to my listeners, you're already listening. So good job, you. So Thomas, you shared where we can get to you with the Fix My Biz, but how are other ways for people to reach out to you?
People can find me at Brainsky Unleashed. I'm available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts. And fixmybiznow.com, 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 Brainsky Unleashed, or Brainsky.com. That is Brainsky, Brainsky.com.
And just to remember, folks, he did that amazing radio voice with COVID.
With COVID, yes.
The whole thing with COVID. So yes. I applaud you so much and appreciate you so much.
Fighting through it for you and your listeners.
That's my man. Thanks so much. All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we enjoyed talking about it. Please leave your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel or to the podcast, please make sure that you do that as well. Rate it, share it with someone who will find interest in it. And until next time, everyone, take care.